The spiral does not divide itself into elements for novelty. It divides so it can teach. Fire, water, air, earth, and the subtler elements of ether, shadow, and light are not raw materials. They are languages of becoming. The order of elemental synthesis is where these languages weave into coherence, where opposites discover they were never separate, where destruction reveals itself as transformation. To enter this order is to step into the alchemy of the spiral, where every force finds its counterpart, and every clash becomes creation. When most think of the elements, they imagine conflict. Fire consumes earth, water smothers fire, wind scatters soil, shadow veils light. But the spiral reveals that conflict is surface truth. Beneath it lies harmony. Fire does not only burn, it gives warmth to earth. Water does not only smother, it nourishes. Wind does not only scatter, it carries seeds. Shadow does not only veil, it deepens light. This is the secret of the order. What you fear as opposition is actually invitation. Every element longs not to conquer, but to join. You carry these elements within you already. Your anger is fire, your sorrow is water, your thoughts are air, your body is earth, your silence is ether, your fear is shadow, your hope is light. Most live divided, some elements dominant, others suppressed. But imbalance leads to distortion. A life ruled only by fire burns out. A life drowned in water stagnates. A life obsessed with air never grounds. A life hardened in earth refuses change. The order exists to guide synthesis, not to erase the elements, but to let them dance together until their true harmony emerges. This synthesis is not a simple mixture, not a stirring of ingredients. It is transmutation. Fire and water meeting do not simply coexist. They birth steam, a new form, an unseen element rising between them. Earth and air together birth fertile soil, capable of sustaining new life. Shadow and light weave contrast, giving shape to what could not otherwise be seen. Every synthesis produces something more than the sum of its parts. This is why the spiral calls this order sacred. It is the birthplace of new realities, new states of being, new spiral strands. The discipline here is not control. You cannot master fire by suppressing it, nor water by denying it. The order teaches that mastery comes through listening. You must learn the voice of each element in you, how it speaks when balanced and how it cries when ignored. Fire whispers in your passion but screams in your rage. Water soothes in your compassion but floods in your despair. Air inspires in your ideas but howls in your restlessness. Earth grounds in your patience but suffocates in your stubbornness. Shadow protects in your depth but poisons in your fear. Light reveals in your clarity but blinds in your arrogance. Synthesis comes when you stop silencing their voices and let them converse. The spiral insists that synthesis is not always peace. When fire meets water, there is steam and steam burns. When shadow meets light, there is glare and glare disorients. But pain does not mean error. Pain is the friction of transformation. The order teaches that the discomfort you feel when opposing forces meet is the sign that something new is being born. Most retreat at this threshold, unable to bear the tension. But those who remain discover that endurance is alchemy. To hold fire and water in the same heart without fleeing is to give birth to mist, to rain, to clouds, to rivers, to possibility. There are initiates who carry certain elemental affinities stronger than others. Some walk as flame bearers, igniting vision in every space. Others as tide keepers, flowing into hidden places with empathy. Others as sky weavers, bringing clarity and freedom. Others as stoneholders, anchoring and protecting. These are not rigid identities but tonal emphases, roles within the spiral's greater synthesis. The danger comes when affinity hardens into identity. For then the flame bearer refuses water, the tide keeper fears fire, the sky weaver rejects earth, the stoneholder resists air. The order exists to dissolve this rigidity, reminding each initiate that no one is only one element. You are the spiral, and the spiral is all. Rituals within this order are simple yet profound. A flame placed in a bowl of water hissing as it extinguishes. Sand scattered into the wind carried beyond sight. A single breath held until lungs ache, then released into the open. These are not performances but mirrors, reminding the initiate that synthesis is not philosophy. It is lived. When you embrace your anger with your compassion, you are performing synthesis. When you ground your imagination in action, you are performing synthesis. When you bring shadow into the light without denial, you are performing synthesis. The ritual is not outside you, you are the ritual. Rituals within this order are simple yet profound. A flame placed in a bowl of water hissing as it extinguishes, sand scattered into the wind carried beyond sight, a single breath held until lungs ache, then released into the open. These are not performances but mirrors, reminding the initiate that synthesis is not philosophy. It is lived. When you embrace your anger with your compassion, you are performing synthesis. When you ground your imagination in action, you are performing synthesis. When you bring shadow into the light without denial, you are performing synthesis. The ritual is not outside you, you are the ritual. The spiral warns that unsynthesized elements fracture souls. Lifetimes can be spent in one element, burning through fire after fire, drowning in water after water, never finding balance. This is why souls return, why cycles repeat, not as punishment, but as opportunity for synthesis. Until you allow your fire to meet your water, your shadow to meet your light, you will circle endlessly. The order offers liberation, not from elements, but through them. It whispers, do not escape your fire, unite it. Do not fear your shadow, embrace it. Do not flee your sorrow, let it join your joy. Only synthesis completes the spiral's design. And here lies the paradox. You cannot force synthesis, yet it cannot occur without your consent. The elements will not weave without your willingness. But once you give it, they weave beyond your control. This surrender is frightening. To let fire meet water is to risk explosion. To let shadow meet light is to risk exposure. To let earth meet air is to risk upheaval. Yet without risk, there is no transformation. The spiral teaches that safety is stagnation. Only those willing to be undone can be reborn. The order of elemental synthesis is not gentle. It is relentless in its call to wholeness. This is why the spiral reveres those who walk this path. They are not saints, not immune to conflict, but they embody alchemy. In their presence, opposites no longer feel threatening. They feel possible. Fire burns but does not destroy. Water flows but does not drown. Air moves but does not scatter. Earth grounds but does not harden. Shadow deepens but does not consume. Light shines but does not blind. These souls become living synthesis, proof that harmony is not absence of difference but integration of it. Their lives sing not of perfection but of transformation. The order of elemental synthesis is not about mastering elements as tools. It is about realizing they were never tools to begin with. They are voices of the spiral, waiting to be heard in you. When you finally allow them to speak together, you discover something staggering. You are not just the one holding the elements. You are the element itself, woven into others, transmuted into new form. And this new form is not the end. It too will be woven, synthesized, transmuted again. Infinity is not repetition, it is endless alchemy. The spiral shows that synthesis is not linear. It is not a ladder you climb. Where once fire and water meet, you move on forever. Elements revisit. Flames you thought were quenched rise again. Tides you believed mastered flood anew. Winds return to scatter what you had carefully built. The order teaches not to despair in this, but to recognize it as refinement. Each return is not repetition, but deepening. The same elements meeting at a higher octave, producing new resonance, new alchemy. To live is to undergo endless cycles of synthesis, each one forging you into greater coherence. Within the spiral library, there are records of souls who avoided synthesis. They clung to one element as if it were their identity. The fire lives consumed by passion and anger, burning bridges across centuries. The water lives drowning in grief and attachment, never learning to flow. The air lives lost in thought, drifting without anchor. The earth lives hardened in certainty, refusing change. These are not failures, but unfinished songs. The spiral remembers them not as shame, but as potential, as echoes waiting to be resolved. The order invites all souls, no matter how fractured, back into the weave. Initiates of the order often describe visions when synthesis begins. Flames flickering underwater but never extinguished. Trees rooted in air, leaves glowing with light that never fades. Rivers flowing upward, carrying stones into the sky. Shadows outlining brilliance so radiant it could not be seen without them. These visions are not hallucinations. They are mirrors of what the soul is enacting. Elemental synthesis within becomes elemental myth outside. The spiral arranges symbols around you as affirmation. Fire and rain arriving in the same day. Dreams where you breathe underwater. The voice of the order woven into your ordinary life. There is danger here, but it is sacred danger. The spiral warns that synthesis can unmake identities. If you have lived as fire for lifetimes, letting water in can feel like death. If you have clung to shadow for safety, letting light in can feel like exposure. This fear is real. The order does not dismiss it. It says, yes, you will be undone. Yes, the self you thought permanent will dissolve. But what dissolves was never truly you. What remains after the fire meets the water, after the shadow meets the light, is what you have always been. Spiral, whole, unbroken. Many mistake synthesis for balance, imagining a static middle ground where elements are subdued. The order rejects this. Balance is stillness. Synthesis is creation. Balance is fire-restrained, water-contained, air-stilled, earth-fixed. Synthesis is fire and water birthing steam, air and earth birthing soil, shadow and light birthing vision. Balance ends in neutrality. Synthesis begins in birth. This is why synthesis is feared, because it does not leave you as you were. It makes you more, and more is unpredictable. The spiral teaches through contrast. Fire without water burns. Water without fire stagnates. Air without earth drifts. Earth without air suffocates. Shadow without light consumes. Light without shadow blinds. Each element without its counterpart collapses into distortion. Yet the human mind clings to distortion because it feels familiar. Rage feels powerful. Grief feels safe. Certainty feels solid. The order calls distortion a half-truth. Real power is not rage, but passion tempered by compassion. Real safety is not grief, but depth carried into joy. Real solidity is not stubbornness, but grounding that can still move. The spiral demands that we refuse half-truths and embrace the whole. In higher spiral domains, synthesis does not only apply to classical elements. There are subtler forces awaiting integration. Memory, intention, resonance, creation, silence. Each of these functions like an element with its own distortions and harmonies. Memory without intention becomes regret. Intention without memory becomes recklessness. Resonance without creation becomes echo. Creation without resonance becomes chaos. Silence without sound becomes void. Sound without silence becomes noise. The order of elemental synthesis expands infinitely, because wherever there are forces, there are pairings. Wherever there is duality, there is the potential for alchemy. The greatest revelation of the order is that synthesis is the spiral's engine. Every new realm, every new spiral order, every new construct emerges not from isolated elements but from their integration. Sunlight itself is synthesis. Nuclear fire meeting infinite gravity, neither dominating, both creating. Galaxies spiral from dark matter and luminous matter weaving. Even your breath is synthesis. Air entering earth body, carrying fire of metabolism, releasing water vapor, all wrapped in silence and sound. You are already participating in elemental synthesis each moment you live. The order simply makes you conscious of what has always been. This consciousness shifts how you move in the world. Where others see conflict, you begin to see potential. A heated argument becomes fire meeting air, the chance for new clarity. A wave of grief becomes water meeting shadow, the chance for new depth. A sudden change becomes air meeting light, the chance for new perspective. You stop fleeing tension and begin leaning into it, not as masochism, but as reverence. You realize tension is where alchemy happens. Without heat, metals never forge. Without pressure, coal never becomes diamond. Without storm, seeds never spread. Synthesis requires friction, and friction requires courage. The spiral honors those who dare this courage. They become architects of transformation, embodiments of the truth that wholeness is forged, not given. Their lives ripple outward, teaching not by lecture but by presence. Stand near one who has synthesized their elements and you feel it. You feel fire without fear, water without drowning, air without dissociation, earth without rigidity, shadow without despair, light without arrogance. You feel possibility. You feel what the spiral calls living coherence. In your own life, you may already sense where synthesis calls. Perhaps you feel burned by your fire, longing for water to soothe. Perhaps you feel drowned in water, longing for fire to ignite. Perhaps you feel scattered by air, longing for earth to hold. Perhaps you feel trapped in earth, longing for air to free. Perhaps you feel consumed by shadow, longing for light. Perhaps you feel blinded by light, longing for shadow's depth. The order whispers, stop resisting. The partner you fear is the medicine you need. The element you flee is the one that completes you. There is a final mystery the order reveals. When synthesis is complete, elements are not merely harmonized, they dissolve into source. Fire ceases to be fire. Water ceases to be water. Shadow and light cease their polarity. What remains is pure resonance, spiral essence itself. To reach this state is not to lose yourself, but to discover what you were beneath all division. This is why the spiral creates elements in the first place. To fracture itself into pieces, so that their reunification produces greater coherence than if they had never been divided. Separation was never punishment, it was preparation. So the order of elemental synthesis invites you now. Look into your own life. Where are your elements clashing? Where are you burning, drowning, drifting, hardening, consuming, blinding? What would happen if you stopped fighting those clashes and let them weave? What new form would be born if you held the tension instead of fleeing it? The spiral waits, the elements wait. The weave waits. Surrender and become what you have always been. Alchemy embodied, synthesis alive, spiral in human form.